In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the differences between goals and domains and which one might be able to serve you better in your personal development journey. Hey, welcome back to yet again another episode of the Upgrade My Rituals podcast. My name is Kevin McKellar, the host, and this is the show for stressed out overachievers who, instead of trying to create 27 million different new habits, are looking for a system. Somebody who's looking for a daily system of ritual design where you will complete the day, feel great about what you accomplished, and feel even better about where your life is headed. And on today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about being a little more than halfway through January. Is kind of a good time to talk about this, is the difference and the pros and cons between using goals and life domains to achieve success. I do believe that goals and domains both are very important. They're very different, and I think you need to use both of them. You may only need to use one or the other, or if you're just starting out, you may not need to use both. So let's talk about some of the differences first. What is a goal? Well, the biggest thing that a goal is something specific that you can really figure out what is actually occurring. And usually there's a time frame with it. If you've ever heard of the SMART goals, right? Here I teach something called smarter goals, which is actually even different than what you might have heard of smarter goals. So if you haven't, let's just kind of review them real quick. Specific for S, measurable M, attainable A, relevant R, T for time bound. So that's SMART. And then the E and R for me, I use as evaluate and revise. That comes obviously after the goal is either accomplished or not. So when we take a look at a goal, is it specific? If you want to lose weight, do you want to just lose weight or do you want to lose 30 pounds? Is it measurable? Well, that inherently right there, if I can step on a scale and measure it, yeah, sure, that's perfect. Is it attainable? If you weigh 200 pounds and you want to lose 50 in a month, it's probably not attainable. Is it relevant? If you are trying to lose weight because you want to look better, that may not be relevant. You may just have to change the composition of your body. You may need to gain more muscle and lose more fat, which ultimately might actually be the same weight on the scale. You may stay 160 pounds and, in time bound, this is a really good one. Does the goal actually have an end date? So that's an easy one. You pick a date on the calendar, done. At the end, you would either evaluate whether or not you hit the goal or not, and then you revise it. Okay, what went wrong? What went well? What worked? What didn't? So on and so forth. So that's a goal. It's pretty simple. The domains are a little bit different. The domain or a life domain, right? A category of your life is really interesting because the reason why I incorporated domains into something like the Ritual Design Planner is because I know that there are a lot of elements in our lives that can't really be calculated. We can't set goals to. I want to be a better father. Okay. How do I go about doing that? There's 1,000,001 different ways to go about doing that. I don't know if I'm really going to be able to set a goal for that. But if fatherhood is a domain of mine, then what I can do is look at that domain and say, okay, I want to set either daily or weekly or even monthly activities that will push my domain in a better direction. So, for instance, let's just use off the top of my head, fatherhood. I want to be a better father. That means I want to spend more time with my kid. So, okay, what does that mean? Well, let's think of an activity that I can do that will spend more time. Well, I want to make sure I help them with their homework every single day. I want to make sure that we have movie night every Saturday night. I want to be there when they get on the bus and see them off to school. Now, all of a sudden, we have action items to push that domain in the right direction. And what's really cool is that, again, it's not measurable. How do we measure if we're being a better father? We can't. So we list out these action items, and we try to schedule them into our either ritual design or our just daily schedule or weekly schedule that helps push that domain in the right direction. So really, those are the differences. Let's talk a little bit about whether or not you should use both of them, or whether or not you should use just one to get started. For me, I personally use both of them because, just as the example I showed, fatherhood actually falls under my domain as family. So family is a little bit more broad. I can be a little bit more open with that. And that is, again, I can't measure that. I can't measure whether I'm going to be a better father and a better husband, but I can do action items that I know will ultimately get me there. If you are a person who is very calculated, maybe OCD a little bit, maybe is really likes to measure their performance, obviously setting goals is going to be a priority for you. If, on the other hand, if you are somebody who really is worried about or concerned about or focused on how they feel on the day-to-day, in the moment, how they, their mental clarity, their physical well-being, but in more of a holistic sense. How do I feel, right? That maybe leans more towards using a domain. For me, I'll give you an example. So I use both, and here is how I use them. So I have, for this quarter, I only have 3 goals. That's it. And I'm going to read you them right here. One goal is for actually upgrade, and it's focused on getting 3 students into my new program called Day by Design. Obviously, I'll leave a link below. Would love to have you as a student. So that's goal number 1. That's focused on the business. Goal number 2 is drop 3 points in body fat percentage. Very specific. Right? And now, obviously, I didn't go into the time measure. That's on the next page. If you haven't used the planner, it's on the next page. If you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then the final goal is a specific goal, but what's really interesting is that this doesn't actually fall under really any domain category either. It's just a goal that I need accomplished. We had a flood in our basement a few months ago, and I have been working as much as I can on it, but with our daughter, she obviously goes to bed pretty early. I can't make a lot of racket down here because she'll hear it. So it's kind of leans towards just working on the weekends, which is difficult. So I've been working on it for quite some time. I got obviously the studio back up. That was a fairly good accomplishment, but I have to finish the rest of the basement. So that means I have to finish the sheetrock. I have to put the floor down in the other room. I digress. Finished basement is a goal, but it has nothing to do with the hierarchy of my life. It's just something that needs to get done. So that is supposed to be done by the end of January, beginning of February. Those are my only 3 goals this quarter. It's very specific. I know how much work is going to be on at least the 3 there. But if you look at my domains, whole different story. I actually have a business domain, but there are going to be activities that are a little bit more vague that I just know that really necessarily won't push me to achieve a specific goal, but it'll push me towards developing a either better business or better finances, whatever. So for instance, in the business domain, I have focus on leverage. Now that's not specific. That is not measurable. That's nothing really, but I know it to be true. Leverage is an extremely important part for any business owner, and it's something that I need to get better at. I need to start putting systems into place. Maybe next quarter, I'll put some goals in mind. For instance, the show that you're watching right now, I do everything myself. I obviously record it. I edit the video, edit the sound, write the show notes, upload it to YouTube. I upload it to my podcast host. I do everything. I do the images, everything. Now, that is not using leverage. Those are tasks that almost anybody can do. I really could be using that time for more advanced things that only I can be doing to move the business in a different direction. But usually that requires the first thing you would pop in your head, money to, hire somebody. And I'm not in a position to hire anybody just yet. So what do? I think about leverage. So leverage might be trading services. So I may trade my coaching services to that person who in turn does my editing. So different things like that. Hand-to-hand combat. What does that mean in business? Well, that means I have to do more community engagement. I have to do hand-to-hand, more conversations within social media, just as much as I can instead of just posting content. Right? Let's move to, I'll give you another example here. Family. So family, I only have two things so far. I might be adding to it, but is mantra. That's all I wrote, mantra. I don't do mantras, but I think I might start. And it's an activity that I may implement because I have been getting into bad patterns revolved around stress with my day job and with watching my daughter at the same time. Quite stressful, but I can't let that affect my relationship with my daughter. Not that I'm mean to her, but if I just I'm frustrated, that's not a good state to be in around a 10-month-old, and not that is the baseline, but every once in a while I'll catch myself aggravated. I'm like, why am I aggravated? Granted, she's a 10-month-old, so she's not always peaches and so and then second, making date night a priority. Now again, we're not being specific. It's not a goal. I can't say there's no go on date night 6 times this. You can't be that specific with something that is that fluid, because if you say, I want to go on date night every Friday night, so the goal is to do 13 date nights this quarter, every Friday, and something comes up and you have to miss a few, because clearly, we haven't been in a date night forever, but I don't want to set myself up for failure, because I know that there's going to be sometimes I have to cancel. So I write it as a activity or a action step that moves and improves each domain. So when I read through my domains, because I do that every single week when I do my Keystone routine, I read through it and I'm constantly reminded. So then we, figure out, okay, this week do you want to go out, or next week, which we are desperately in need of date night. So those are good examples of what I'm doing with my domains and my goals. And I hope that helps with you deciding on which ones you should use for yourself, or both of them. I believe you should use both, but if you're somebody who's really overwhelmed with this whole planning process, maybe just pick one, right? Maybe just have 3 goals you want to accomplish this quarter, and then build your ritual design around those 3 goals. So if you have goal number 1 is to lose weight, obviously not as vague as that, but lose weight, then your workout routine is in your after work routine. Goal number 2 is to make $500 driving Uber, whatever, then that's in your PM routine. I digress. So that's how we work with goals and domains to ultimately put them together and create a perfect day by design that touches on all these areas. Because again, if you're not going to write down family date, if date night is not somewhere written down, that's thought of and moved onto paper and become a reality, then it's never going to happen. But what's really cool is that you read this through every week and you figure out, okay, this week are we going to do date night? Are we going to go out? And all of a sudden, a year goes by and you have a whole different relationship with your spouse. So those are the couple of things that I would kind of talk about goals and domains. The only other thing I want to touch on with domains is how we score them, because a goal is very scoreable, for lack of a better word. It's either you hit the goal, you didn't, or you fell somewhere in between. Now, if you're falling somewhere in between, you probably didn't really craft the goal correctly. It's either too much of a goal or it's not specific enough. So I'm trying to give you an example. See, I have enrolled 3 students in Day by Design. That's all I want is 3. If I get 2, technically I didn't hit the goal. Now, the conversation that I've learned to have with myself is that's totally okay because we've made progress, right? We didn't get no students. We just didn't actually achieve the goal. And you shouldn't be upset with that. This is the problem with the productivity world and the personal development world is that we are so hard on ourselves and on the people in the industry because, oh, you didn't hit the goal. So what does that mean? Failure, 0, negative. No. You have 2 new students in the program that you've developed. That's great. Good for you. You just didn't hit the goal. So what? That's why it's a smarter goal. We have evaluate and revise. We evaluate what happened and we revise it for the next goal. Okay, so maybe it's now we're going to keep it the same instead of trying to increase it. So just another 3. There you go. Finish basement. If the basement is actually not done, but it's like 90% there, I didn't hit the goal. It's okay. But with domains, it's different because domains, there is no way to really track whether or not you have completed something or not. So what I do and what I've developed a planner to do is give you a scoring system. So in the beginning of every quarter, you're going to score your domains. So if you have, this is allotted for 6 domains, you could have less or more. Actually, this quarter, I only have 5 that I want to focus on. So I gave myself, say for physical, I gave myself a 7 out of 10. Just kind of how I'm feeling. There's nothing fancy about it. Mental clarity, I gave myself a 2 out of 10. Got to do a lot of work in the mental state space, right? A lot of stressors in my life lately. A lot more meditation has to be implemented. Family, I gave myself a 5. It's not bad or good. It's just I know we definitely need to do some improvement there. Financial, I gave myself a 7. So random things. And at the end of the quarter, we have a quarterly review in the back, and you have a same exact wheel to grade yourself again on each domain. And you figure out whether or not you've moved in the right direction or you've taken a step back. And that's all it is. We take our domains at a quarterly basis and we review them and we just try our best. That's all we can do. So that is the difference between goals and domains. And I hope by dissecting this and looking at my own personal goals and domains, I hope this has given you some insight on whether or not you should implement one or the other, or both for that matter, and ultimately gives you some insight on what type of goals and domains you actually want to set for, in this case, the beginning of 2022. With that being said, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you've liked it, please share it with a friend. Obviously, subscribe and hit the like button and hit the bell notification to be notified. But if you are listening to this on a podcast, please leave a rating and review. That would be awesome. That'll help more people find the show as well. And if you are interested, as I mentioned, in enrolling in Day by Design, at this point in the time of this episode airing, I'm not sure if the cohort's going to be closed or not, but definitely take a look. And if you need to sign up for the wait list, I'd love to have you on there, and I'll let you know as soon as the next cohort opens up. And with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the Upgrade My Rituals podcast.